The longest current undefeated run has ended, with Loud for the first time ever losing to a Brazilian team. That's almost 3 whole years of absolute dominance against their countrymates, something we may never see again. And this loss has just been a drop in the ocean of problems and struggles they've had all this season, dropping from one of the world's best to fighting at the bottom of America's standings in almost record time. So I wanted to take you through why Loud can't win anymore, and dive into some key issues that were truly exposed throughout this entire season. So really, the downfall of Loud this season started with a clear and simple reason, then just got more complicated from there. And it started with aspas. After falling out of champs last year in third, some big news came and broke the hearts of Brazilian fans, as it was announced he'd be leaving Loud after playing for 2 seasons, with now Les and Sadak as the lone members left from the World Championship winning roster of 2022, clearly marking the end of an era and making fans speculate who will fill this enormous shoes for Loud as the new entry player going into the season. And their answer didn't take long with QCK, who's been a great flex player for Furia since practically the beginning of the game, was brought in. So while people knew that there would be some growing pain with the new duelist, expectations were high for them going into the kickoff tournament, as everyone had faith in this leadership core of Sadak and Les, who had consistently brought their team to the top of Valorant, being a top 3 team for multiple events now. So while they knew it would be hard, they were still expected to make it to Masters Madrid. And they started off well, winning against Sentinels and Lev, showing that there was a reason why Les and aspas were both considered the best on the team, with Les taking over in a few maps, along with QCK playing well, but definitely not a replacement for aspas. And in their deciding match to determine if they would or would not make Masters Madrid, they got the lucky draw with them facing the new EG, which they of course won, but not without some issues surprisingly, as this is where the first glimpses into the problems to come were seen. As while some of the weird comps they used in their first 2 matches worked, against EG, they solved Loud's ascent, something that was starting to look like a strong suit. They were able to win the last 2 matches to qualify for Madrid, and were able to push Sentinels to 5 maps, but everyone knew the real test was to see how this new Loud team would be in an international event. And the pressure would be on QCK to really step up into his own with the team, and truly mesh into the Sadak-led system. But this wouldn't be fully the case in Madrid, as they were first faced up against the eventual Masters Shanghai champs, Gen G, who at the time weren't viewed as a true top tier team yet. So when they were unable to win in map 3, with them being completely shut down, hopes for this team continued to slide, as for the rest of the Swiss stage, they'd be an elimination point. But they were able to sweep both the Chinese teams, who in this event just didn't look up to par with the rest of the competition, to barely make it into playoffs. And really, if they matched up with any of the other Swiss stage contenders, it might not have gone their way. And once the playoffs started, it was clear they already went deeper than their team was truly capable of, losing to Sentinels in their rematch and then being eliminated by Paper X. And while they finished in yet another top 4 spot, it just didn't feel the same, as it was clear that they weren't the same team. And they were definitely in danger of falling behind as the good teams got better and better together as the season goes on. So going into Split 1, no one knew which way Loud would go, truly stamp themselves as a top team after some improvement, or fall flat on their face. And they did the latter, first losing to NRG in what would be their only good match as a team together, before they would completely implode, something I would go over in a future video, as well as losing to Cloud9 in 3 maps. And while starting Split 1 off 0-2 isn't great for this team, people viewed these just as hard opponents, as NRG was supposed to be a super team and Cloud9 are just goated in the regular season. And the moment Code Red was triggered was in their week 3 match against Crew, where they were handled in a 2-0 sweep, with Crew just out aiming and stratting them, something that'd be unheard of just last year, when all they did was replace 1 player. So with them now 0-3, blame was thrown every direction, with everyone coming under fire, with QCK and the coaching staff taking the brunt of it, as they were the change over the ops season. As a team, they were able to quell some of the unrest, winning 2-0 against Sentinels, who had been slipping in Split 1 since winning Madrid, and G2, who couldn't slow down Les on Bind or Icebox, allowing them to make it into playoffs in the final spot. And they definitely could have made a surprise run like they had done in times past, but against 100 Thieves, this narrative is stopped, as they, in my opinion, officially lost their aura as an untouchable Brazilian team that just can turn it off whenever they need to. They were crushed by Boostio and 100 Thieves, as even though they restrained their comp choice on both maps, they were unable to get QCK involved in the game, with him being constantly one-tapped by Cryo or Asuna or anyone really, as he suffered greatly throughout this elimination match. To not only miss their chance to make Shanghai, but also put themselves in really poor position for the rest of the year. So in the month downtime they had while the top teams competed in China, they decided to make a change from QCK, who never really fit into the team, and picked up their old teammate Pancata, who instantly reignited hope that they would have a late season rebound like they had in seasons past. But we know what happens next. They lose against EG, making their chances really hard, then barely beat MIBR, a team that hadn't even won a map yet. And then to top it off and lead us to today, they were defeated by Furia to both lose their playoff hopes and their complete dominance against other Brazilian teams, marking a downturn for Loud that could possibly leave room for a new best of Brazil. But here's where I want to really dive into the core issues that have haunted Loud throughout the season after losing aspas. The first glaring issue that anyone with eyes and time watching Loud matches can see recently is that Sadek isn't a duelist, and he's been playing duelist since QCK was benched. Sadek even has gone on record saying he hates playing the entry role. So why do Loud have him playing Neon? Well, because who else is going to play duelist? After benching QCK, they didn't pick up another available entry player, but rather picked up Pancada, who of course is a world-class player, but he's a smokes player after all. Something they already have with Les or Tuis, causing major role overlap with a clear gap in the duelist role. So Sadek, when they absolutely need a duelist, will switch to Neon, leaving another either Les or Tuis to shift from their comfort picks to allow Pancada back on smokes. And these role issues and uncomfortable agent picks can be seen throughout every map, as Sadek repeatedly doesn't entry as explosively as you'd want from a duelist, as here in this pistol round on Bind, he needs to dive deep onto site to really open it up for his team. But since he doesn't play Raze, with Neon it's a lot harder. He uses his fast lane but then stops to try and work around his walls for a quick pick. He ends up getting the opener, but since he took this duel so far back, his team can't get past the choke point he needed to push through, not being able to take advantage of the player lead and losing the critical round, leading to a loss to Furia. This issue can be seen in any maps Sadek plays Neon, as he doesn't play her like a duelist but rather as his more comfortable role of initiator, which focuses more on isolating duels, which when playing entry is not the goal at all. And add on top of this role change, he still has the IGL, and it's just a disaster for him, as even when they do leave out the duelist, they lack the ability to push on the attack or take space on defense, putting them in a world of hurt no matter the map, since they never truly feel comfortable with what everyone is playing. These role issues lead into a second reason why they lost to Furia and other weaker teams they should have beaten. It's because of the agent comps they choose. Every other map has them coming out with comps that no one has ever seen, or more accurately put, should ever see in a pro match. They started off the season with flash-heavy comps, with Ascent being the prime example, with QCK on Phoenix, which was something he did on a couple of maps until he was benched. On Haven, they leaned towards Neon, which I don't really think long-term is a great choice for these players. Or we can even look at the Bind comp, where they avoided the commonly used Raze, and once again tried the Neon, which doesn't really work for Sadek, which we saw earlier. But it's not like they're trolling in the same way Paper-X does, who have even crazier comps. But rather it's out of necessity, because of the role issues we discussed. When pretty much everyone on the team plays the same roles, you get current meta agents being completely excluded from the team's playbook, making them not only unable to adapt to the meta shifts, but also they'll have to play comps that are conceptually flawed. And while it might net them a win or two the first time people see it, once it's a known comp, then it's pretty easy to solve for a competent team in Tier 1. But ultimately, with these 5 players, they're just unable to really place normal sound comps in the current meta. And really, the meta would have to shift pretty majorly for them to truly fit correctly. Which leads to the final issue, what I think everyone can easily see about this team. Aspas was the key to this team's success. That's something that people were asking about after he departed the team. Would he fail without Loud, or would Loud fail without him? Well, Aspas hasn't made any deep runs in major events yet. It's clear he's continued to have success individually and as a team, both getting the new single map kill record and the current top spot in the America standings, while Loud has kind of become this. So why was aspas so important? It's to do with the idea that a team needs 3 players that can kind of take over a game. Old Loud had that. Les, aspas, and Pancada. Cowanzine was able to fill Pancada's role pretty well in this last year, not as high as the year before, but still great. But now with aspas gone, they hoped QCK could fit in there, and maybe not be a top fragger all the time, but still have potential to do so. But really, this wasn't something QCK ever really showed, both in his time with Loud or even with Furia, being a reason why they never picked up a game off of Loud, even though they faced off multiple times regionally. Now it really only seems like they have less that can put the team on his back in rounds, which then forces them to try and do superhero plays, leading to a lot of individual peaks. This has led to maps going from being close early to complete blowouts by the end of it. Something that rarely happened when aspas was on the team. They just kind of get blown out a lot now, tearing away the unstoppable mystique they had before this season. But until my next video, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, where you can also watch my recent video all about the Neon meta and how it's been working for some of the Valorant's newest superstars.